I'm an account manager here at MIG. And welcome to our Requisition Procurement and Purchasing with Microsoft Dynamics webinar. But before we begin, we just have a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, you can listen through your mic and speakers to use your computer speakers and voice over IP, or you can choose telephone to dial in using the information provided. And throughout the webinar, you'll be allowed to submit any questions via our questions panel, and then if we have time permitting at the end, we'll usually have a question and answer period after the presentation. And here's a quick agenda on what we're going to be covering today. First of all, a little bit about MIG and who we are, an introduction to Paramount Technologies, a live demo, and troubleshoot, and then a question and answer period. So please, as always, continue to answer any questions you have or ask any questions throughout the process. So first of all, a little bit about MIG. MIG specializes in the implementation of financial and business management systems. We like to help our customers streamline their processes and, of course, maximize productivity. The solutions that we are specialists in are Microsoft Dynamics GP, SL, CRM. We're also specialists in Microsoft SharePoint and Business Intelligence. We have well over 15 years of business experience, and our company focuses on businesses from mid-market to enterprise-level customers. We have several certifications. We are a Microsoft Gold certified partner. We're also listed with the Better Business Bureau. We're in a BBB accredited business. We're also a GSA approved vendor, and we're also part of the National Registry of CPE. Which you can take our webinars for CPE credits. So, and now I will turn it over, and Beth, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Paris. My name is Beth Owavama. I'm the Channel Sales Manager at Paramount Technologies, and we thank you for taking time out of your day to take a look at our requisition and a procurement solution. To give you a little bit of background about Paramount Technologies, we are a Microsoft Dynamics ISV, so what that means is we are certified with Microsoft for our ISV products. We work hand in hand with MIG to bring you the best of procurement solutions. Our office is headquartered in Walled Lake, Michigan, which is just right outside Detroit, but we do have employees located across the United States. In our headquarters, we also have our support as well as our development staff, all located right there in Michigan. Workplace is all we focus on. That is our exclusive focus. We don't resell anything else. We only work and continue to improve our spend management and workflow automation solution. We have well over 90,000 users worldwide, and we are the best of breed when it comes to procurement and time and expense solutions for all the Microsoft Dynamics platforms. We have customers that range from a size of 5 users well up to over 3,000 users. So what is Microsoft Dynamics Workplace? What is Paramount Workplace? We are a 100% web-based solution, and that solution is integrated right back to Microsoft Dynamics, whether that's GP or SL. Every year we do offer annual major version releases, and those releases and features and functionality that are offered in our new solution comes from feedback from customers. We support multiple internet browsers, and we really strive to focus on the balance end user experience with financial controls. So what does that mean? That we really like to have your customer, your end user, the people down in the trenches entering in that information have it very easy at their fingertips to get the information needed, but not so much that they need to know any of the accounting background, but of course having the accounting being able to get as much information as needed for them. With our product, it's a 13-year mature product. We offer configuration over customization. So within those 13 years, we have had many customers needing different configurations. It makes it very easy for you to just turn on and off certain fields and make it configurable versus having to do a large customization. We offer multiple authentication modes such as application, single sign-on, and Active Directory. The workplace core solutions, we have 4, which are our requisition and procurement that we're going to spend time on today, as well as travel and expense, AP invoice automation, and project time. Now, each one of these can be a standalone solution, or they can work hand in hand. The user interface is common throughout, but each solution is their own solution in their own right. We also offer workplace mobile app for our travel and expense and our project time. These are actual apps that you can download from the Apple Store or from, and I apologize, I don't have an Apple phone, so, or you can or download it from your, for your BlackBerry. But these are actual applications that can be downloaded onto your mobile, and where you could capture your expenses for travel and expense, or also capture your time for project time. While we're not going to be spending time on either one of those modules today, I just wanted to let you know that that is available. But the solution that you're going to be seeing today can also be run on your iPad as well as your laptop, still allowing you to be on the go. And what we'll do right now is we'll hand it over to David Monroe, who's our product specialist, who will be going through the live demonstration of workplace requisition and procurement.
Great, thanks, Beth. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Dave Monroe, and I will be doing the live demonstration here today, going through that requisition and the related procurement process. Now, a few general notes that I want to point out right at the beginning here. So, as Beth mentioned, is the solution you're going to see here today has integration with Microsoft Dynamics. That's with all the Dynamics platforms, so regardless of which of those that you're on. Now, when we at Paramount use the word integration, we use it in a very thorough way. So we actually do mean a detailed integration. So this isn't we import and export files or anything along those lines. This is a direct, deep integration into multiple areas, ranging from the general ledger for your account codes and budgeting structures to accounts payable for your vendors and payment terms and transaction history and payment information, even to over to even the project areas. So if you're running the related project areas of the Dynamics platform, there's even integration into those specific areas. So as part of this, this portal becomes a natural extension for your Dynamics platform, but it has a very strong focus on that requisition process and some of the other related procurement pieces. These are areas, of course, that the individuals that need to interact with them aren't accountants. They might not even know what Microsoft Dynamics is in the first place, but they need to request something, or maybe they have authority within the organization that they need to sign off on something before an order can be placed, or if there is an invoice that's over a certain tolerance, an invoice can actually be processed in AP. So these are individuals that need to interact with a financial system, but may not, or excuse me, financial process, but may not actually be familiar with financial systems. So this is a continuous focus. Now, as Beth also mentioned in the opening, this is a web-based application. You know, these types of processes are only successful if they're easily accessible in the first place. It must be web-based. It must be multi-browser. The official supported browsers of Workplace being Chrome, which I'll be using for today's Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer, which then allows it to be accessed on that PC, on that Mac, on those tablets running those comparable browsers. Now, for the demonstration today, I'm going to be logging in as a few different roles. These are representative roles of types of individuals that may need to be engaged in this process. Those are going to range from my employee, my requester, so someone that's initiating a request of some sort, to an approver, someone that's going to approve that transaction. We'll talk about the approval workflow capabilities there, certainly one of the strengths of the Workplace platform. We'll get into the purchasing side of things, receiving, and even invoice matching. Now, what is key about these different experiences is when someone accesses the system and logs in, what they're going to be met with is a personal dashboard. So this dashboard that I'm looking at, this is my employee dashboard. This is someone that is typically requesting items, may need to do desktop receiving down the road, so there's some receiving access. But as a requester, when you access the system, unless you're entering in a new request, one of the most common things that people are looking for is the status of any existing request that they've entered in. So on my dashboard, as soon as I log in, the first thing that I see over here on the outstanding transaction list is a list of my outstanding transactions and their status in real time. So if I look at Requisition 109 here, for example, I can instantly see that I have one line disapproved on it. I have 3 lines waiting for approval by 2 different people. I can see the 2 different names there. And I have 1 line that's fully approved. As soon as someone makes an update in that process, it will instantly be viewable on this dashboard. I also have the vendor summary turned on. This is something that can be turned off, but I have it turned on in my case, which means that for this requisition number 109, it's giving me right in my dashboard also a list of the different vendors that are listed in that requisition and the current dollar amounts that are attributed to each one. So it gives me that quick snapshot of where things are and what it actually is. Announcement capabilities, catalog capabilities, and we'll come back to the catalogs a little bit more. User preferences, minor things, changing things like the color, the date format. A more important setting down here is related to my email notifications. Certainly being a workflow component and being embedded in the application, email notification is key to the success of that workflow. For some of your heavy approvers, that can actually become a burdensome process because they're being bombarded throughout the day with these email notifications. So one of the nice features that is built in, and this is a great example of a feature that you see in a product that has been installed for 13 years. It's a very mature product, is the ability to actually set what time of day am I going to receive my email notifications. You want to get first thing in the morning, end of the day, middle of the day. You set that at a personal level so each individual can have their own setting. Now if I come down to the requisition area here, once again I can see my outstanding items, but I can also get into my find requisition. Allows me to pull up any historical requisition that I have access to. Maybe it's my personal requisition. Maybe it's a department-wide view or a system-wide view, but allows me to search on any requisition to the beginning of time, bring it up, pull up the details, and we're going to do that later on. And then, of course, I can start a brand new request. Now, when you're talking about procurement, when you're talking about requisitions is probably one of the most underrated critical process, and as a result, critical application areas in most organizations. Unless all of your purchase orders are being driven exclusively off of a production schedule or production demand, or perhaps they're being driven right off of sales orders or things along those lines, unless you're in exclusively those 2 categories, you have a requisition process of some sort, whether you know it or not. Maybe it's manual, maybe it's somewhat automated, maybe it's working, maybe it's broken. But the requisition process is that pre-approval, of course, for someone to engage into a purchase transaction with a vendor before you actually do it. There's a lot of emphasis out in the marketplace on invoice approvals. I want to get an invoice in, I want to be able to approve it. And that, certainly there's situations where that applies, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. But invoice approval at its heart does not really provide any value to an organization if you've received the invoice you've already received those goods or services. You have a liability. You have an obligation, most likely, that you might not even seen to pay that invoice, whether you approved it or not. So invoice approval does not actually help you with your cash flow, does not help you with your strategic planning, with your budget control. Only a requisition process can do that. So then it comes down to, well, now I need to have this requisition process. I need to make that simplified. I need to have effective controls within there. And those can sometimes be contradictions to each other, but it's something that we've worked very hard to bring together. So how do you do a requisition? There's a few ways you can do that. But let's do a simple one for a moment. And remember, it doesn't matter if you're purchasing inventory, services, just goods that are going to be expensed. This process is exactly the same. This is not an inventory-specific process or a services-specific process. You might deploy it slightly differently in those scenarios, but the steps are the same, the controls are the same, the requirements are the same. So this will apply in all instances. So to do a request, I simply go into requisition entry. Brings me up my requisition screen, the screen where I can go in and enter my request. So if I want to do a services example, I can say I need some legal services. Don't need the extra character here, of course. And I'm going to need 8 hours of those. And as part of that, I'm going to go in and attach a copy of a quote related to it. So I go in, attach a quote. There we are to my legal services. There we are. Simple as that. I can take this request right now, I can submit it, and it can go through routing and approval. That's one example. Now, I also talked about inventory requests, or maybe I just want to have a standardized way of people requesting things. So I want to create what's called an item list. That is also supported right here. So I can go in, pull up an inventory list or an item list, select an item, which will bring in the item, default in the description, put in a unit of measure, I can now put in my quantities associated with that. Now, down below here, I have some additional fields that are popping up. Just three simple fields. These fields here, these are your extended piece of information, and they're kept down at the bottom because they are, in some cases, optional. If they are a critical field, you would actually move them up to the top. So if you want someone to always be specifying a vendor, you would actually move it to the line. You know, and that is a configuration that can be done at the time of the install for your environment. Now, for the entry process itself, outside of the direct entry that we saw, there's actually a few other mechanisms that you can utilize to build a requisition. Remember, it's about trying to standardize this, but simplify it at the same time. You can't deploy a successful requisition system where your requesters have to go in and fill in a massive form and 20 different pieces of information. Because this is a system, a lot of things can be defaulted or derived based off of who someone is or what they've selected. In addition, you can give them tools that help them enter information on a more expedited fashion. And one of those tools that is provided, it's one of the most utilized tools in the requisition process by our customers, is this shopping list. A shopping list is like a template or a favorites list. You can have as many different shopping lists as you want. They can be specific to a user, to a department, or system-wide. When you have a pre-built shopping list, and once again, inventory, standard items to be expensed, services with going off of straight descriptions can all be part of shopping lists. But when you have a shopping list, you can pull up that pre-built list and simply say, I need 5 of these, I need 7 of these, and 8 of these. Click load, and it brings that information into the requisition. And as you can see down below here, it actually also pre-populated some of my other fields. So I have a default site in here. I have a default vendor now that's starting to pop up. That's your shopping list feature. Now, some other capabilities that are included we're actually visible on the front screen. So if I click on my Paramount Workplace logo here and come back to my main dashboard, I have these two catalogs that are sitting here. Now I just have two. You can have as many different catalogs as you want. But what is important is to note the type of catalog. Workplace supports two different ones. The first one here is an internal catalog. So what this means is this is a catalog that is built into the application. It is something that you maintain, typically through spreadsheet import or generating it off an item list. When you have an internal catalog, you can actually deploy an online retail type of an experience to your requesters. So part of that, you can have the different images if you want. You have category drill downs if you need to. There's full keyword search capabilities. You can pull up extended information. And once you've found the items that you want, add them to a cart, add multiple items to a cart as much as you need to. Once your shopping cart is complete, you can use that shopping cart to either start a new requisition, like I did here, or you could actually bring it into an existing requisition. That's your catalogs. Now, one other type of catalog here is this punch-out. Now, punch-out is a little bit different than the internal, and punch-out is a procurement standard. It is something that we did not develop. It is something that already exists in the general marketplace, but it is something that we provide as part of an interface. When a vendor is punch-out enabled, and lots of different sectors are, so your office supplies, your computer supplies, medical supplies, scientific, hardware supplies, specialty supplies, a lot of your major suppliers are going to support this punch-out standard. When you have a punch-out vendor, I can actually click on that icon, access it from within a requisition, and what it will do is actually punch out or connect to that vendor's website. You can see, right, I'm right on the Office Depot website now. Now, when it does that, though, it's actually passing through your organizational credentials. So this is now not just the Office Depot portal. This is my organization's version of the portal. So now when I, as a just requester, am shopping this site, I'm seeing my contracted items, my contracted prices. I can build a shopping cart as normal. Here it is here. Keep adding, keep shopping. Eventually, you'll check out as normal. But that's where the punch-out process starts to kick in again, is when it brings that in, it'll bring in the description, the vendor item perhaps, a quantity, a price field, which we'll come back to, the vendor itself, right from that punch-out experience. Now, because it was through that punch-out portal, I'm guaranteed to have the most up-to-date catalog, as up-to-date as the vendor themselves will keep it. This line now did not issue an order. You're not going to get a bill or anything along those lines. It's still simply a request. So now I can take this request, route it for approval according to your approval matrix, just like everything else. The one additional benefit of a punch-out line is when you get to that stage of issuing the purchase order, it will automatically transmit it back to the vendor, back to Office Depot. So you don't need to issue anything. You can even set it up that as soon as you get that final approval, send the PO. Don't worry about doing any sort of purchasing step. Just send it as soon as you get that final approval. That's your punch-out standard. Now I'm going to come back to that requisition we were working on at the beginning here, number 118. I'll pull it back up to the screen. So now what I've shown you is within the interface here, a number of different mechanisms or methods that you can use to populate this requisition, and they're all designed to help expedite the data entry process, but do it in such a way that you get a controlled result. Now, one of the other ways of controlling the result that you get from here is by controlling the interface itself. So you'll see on my requisition, you may have been thinking this as I've been going through, going, you know, your requisition, you're stating that this is integrated into Dynamics and that you're aware of financial processes, but I see very little here as it relates to financial content. Where's my account codes? Where's my payment terms? Where's my bill to? Where's my ship to? Where's the other information I would expect to see as part of a procurement process? And the answer is, it's there. You just can't see it. Why? Because I've turned it off for this user. So one of the components or configuration capabilities, and I use that word very, very explicitly, configuration, which means you as a customer, as a system administrator, myself as a former customer myself, is I used to do these types of configurations, is you can actually change the layout for different individuals. So what I just did in my other window is I just changed the layout for this individual. Now I'm going to hit refresh on my browser, and if you look down at the bottom here in particular, as I refresh my screen, I have to hit refresh, I just had a number of fields just appear. You'll also notice they're even pre-populated. So for that particular user, that sort of standard user, I was hiding those fields, but they were still being populated by the shopping list, by the catalogs, by the punch-out, and by just other defaults of what I've been entered in, or maybe based off of who I am. But I didn't want to burden the user with that information, so I just hid it from them. You can also make fields read-only if you want. So if you want to display something but they can't change it, you can make it read-only. You can make fields required. So if you want to make sure someone's always entering in a vendor, for example, you can make it required. You can also default information and even put security on the lookups themselves, so people can only see certain account codes or certain segments of an account code or certain vendors or certain items. You can set up security at that level if you need to. All of these mechanisms designed to help expedite the entry and control that entry. Now that I've opened up this requisition, there's a few other things I want to touch on in terms of just the general capabilities, and a lot of these things come back to integration. So first of all, let me go to this vendor list here, and you'll notice it has a little magnifying glass. If I go into the vendor list, I'll see my vendors. These are your AP vendors. This is not a separately maintained list. Once again, it's not imported or exported. As you add a vendor into accounts payable, it is available in this list, as are all the financial pieces of information here. So my account codes, or my account and sub-account combinations, my ship tos, my bill tos, my various vendor addresses or remit tos, my shipping methods, my vendor item list, if I'm maintaining that even. If you're dealing with budgets at any point, doesn't matter if it's a standard general ledger budget or an advanced budget engine, maybe on the Dynamics GP, for example. There's an encumbrance engine and PO commitments and other things along those lines. Those budgets are also integrated at this point. So if I go into the details for this line here, for example, it's showing me for that account code the actual that's been booked, how much has been encumbered as part of this procurement process, the total, how much is budgeted, and what I have remaining for that period. The encumbered here, and this is consistent whenever we are tracking against a budget, is going to be recorded against as soon as I enter a requisition and hit save. So this is a very important element. For any of you that need to track a budget, does not matter if it's a financial budget, a purchasing budget, a encumbered budget, a project budget, a vendor budget, which you can maintain through a vendor contract. As soon as you enter in that requisition, it will count against that budget. So in those situations where you have a dollar left and you have two people vying for that dollar within that period, the first person who hits it will get that, no problem. The second person will get a message. What happens with that message is up to you. Maybe you want to stop the person from submitting it. Maybe you want to have an additional approval now kick in because you're going to go over budget. But what is important is that you don't have two separate requests for the same thing, the same amount, being approved separately and then create a conflict for you at the time of the purchase order. Know about that conflict right at the request stage because it will change your behavior. Few other notes and capabilities, and some of these things may or may not apply, but I always like to touch on them at least. So one of those being attachments. As you saw, you can do attachments at the header level. You can also do it at the line level. It will display here. From a comment standpoint, you can do header level comments. You can also do line level comments, even purchase order level comments. So if you need a comment to show up on the PO itself, that's going to be generated in the end. You have the ability to see information such as, let me pick a line actually, is inventory. So you have the ability to potentially see inventory on hand, inventory values if you are running inventory within Dynamics. Each line also as one of our optional modules has the ability to do what's called a distribution. You can think of as an allocation. So right at the time of the requisition, and frankly you can add this later on down the road in the process if you need to, but if I go into this geo distributions, this allows me to either manually or based off of a preset group actually allocate that line. So think of a purchase order line. I have a single purchase order line. I'll use the in-office supply example. I can actually allocate that line across 10 different departments, charge all 10 departments for that office supply expenditure, all through a distribution. So I don't need to do a separate journal entry at the end of the month. I can even set it up that as soon as I pick Office Depot, it automatically does my distributions to the different departments if I want. There's other capabilities built in that are sort of more Dynamics level specific. An example down here is analytical accounting. This is specific to the Dynamics GP platform, but also has an integration. On the if you get into other platforms like Dynamics SL, you have integration into the project series, into Project Controller itself, where you start to have the project and the task showing up. Same with Dynamics GP, project accounting. So, all the key areas that you would need to touch on, those are most likely, I never say never 100% on anything, but most likely we've already done them. They already exist. Most likely they've been there for a long time. So a very deep integration throughout that entire process. Now, I know we spend a lot of time on the requisition here, and you might be looking at your time and going, wow, this is going to be a 4-hour presentation, and I promise you that it's not. The reason we spend a lot of time on this requisition is this is 90% of the work, all the way through to the payment to the vendor and your general ledger, your financial statements. This is 90% of the work. The information that goes in this requisition passes through for approvals, passes through to the purchase order, passes through for receiving, passes through for the invoice, passes through for the payment, passes through to the general ledger, all from this requisition. So if you think of that shopping list scenario where I have a lot of the information defaulted in for me, I can put in a request here, issue a PO, receive against it, match an invoice against it, pay that vendor, and print my financial statements, and I didn't enter a single transaction. Not one. That is the power of the requisition system, the power of having it actually integrate along the way. Now, let's move into the approval side of things, because certainly that's another key element. It's great that you can collect this information in an easy-to-use manner, in a controlled manner, but if you can't do approvals correctly, then it starts to become counterproductive. I'm going to take this requisition, I'm going to submit it, and based off of who I am and what I've entered, this requisition is going to be submitted to one or more different approvers automatically. Each line on this requisition can potentially, does not need to be, but potentially could actually go to a completely different set of approvers. Or maybe you want to do it off the total requisition, or the department of the individual recorded it, or the department that's actually being charged. So you can see the line level department can be different than the department of the individual. You can have unlimited approval levels, unlimited approval paths. And as a former customer, one of the most important elements is the fact that you can create or design or define your workflow requirements based off of virtually any piece of information that is on this requisition. So that includes the dollar amount, of course. the department, of course, but also includes what vendor it is, what item it is, the shipping method, the bill to, the ship to, the site perhaps, the account code, a portion of the account code. All of these things can be embedded to define the workflow. Now if I come back to my main dashboard here, I can now see, once again, I got requisition number 118. I have 3 different vendors that are listed on it. It's now waiting for approval, and everything is with my standard approver. And sure enough, if I log out as that employee and I log in as an approver, I'll actually see that I have a different dashboard for this approver. Most importantly, I have this to-do section showing up saying I have to approve pending requisitions, and I can see I have 8 different lines that are awaiting a decision from me. Now, human nature being what it is, you certainly can't rely on individuals to just log into the system periodically and just see if they have something to approve. Most of the time, they have better things to do. So that's where email notification comes in. So as part of the deployment, one of the pieces that will be incorporated is the email notification process. So each time you as an approver need to approve something, you're going to receive an email notification. In that email notification, you're going to have a hyperlink. Click on this, takes you right into the system. I have the details down below from that requisition, the lines that actually apply to me. One of the nice features of a best-of-breed solution is those other little features that make a big deal. And one of the little features that makes a big deal is the ability to actually take the email that you just received, hit reply to that email, and then either at the header level, put in a Y here, hit send. I just approved that entire requisition. Single character, single click. I could also do that at the line level. I want to approve this line. I'm going to skip the second line. I'm going to disapprove the third line right from my email. Now, this is summary information. It's not going to show you every piece of information that's on that requisition. So if you do need to see more detailed information in order to make a decision, that's when you'll go into this to-do section. You'll pull it up within the web application, keeping in mind that many of the tablets that are out there can run this interface. So to do the approvals within the application, you pull that up. You're going to get one line for each requisition in your queue. As you can see, you get an instant view if you have a problem like a budget problem. So it's telling me right off the bat that my budget's been exceeded on this requisition. Now, down below here, though, number 118, this is the one that we're working with today. If I expand that particular requisition, I can see the details underneath it. I can potentially edit this. You can make it so it's read-only, of course. I can go into the general area here and see any of the additional information related to those individual requisition lines. I can take a mass update. So in this case here, say approve all. But even though I did approve all, I can disapprove a line, wait on a line, override that status. Additional business rules can kick in, of course. So if I want to disapprove this line here, the system's now forcing me to give a reason why I am disapproving. So as part of those reasons, you can have standardized reasons, or you can allow people to just type something in, need more information. Of course, spell check is part of the browser. Save and close, hit process, and I'm done. My to-do list went from 8 down to 4. If I log out as that approver and log in as my employee, I can see there's that requisition number 118. And now I have different statuses going on. I have one line disapproved, 3 lines still waiting for approval, 1 line that's fully approved. Once again, if I drill into it, I can see which line is which in that status. If I go to the disapproved line and click on the details, I can see exactly who disapproved it and when, plus the reason they disapproved it. If I'm not sure why this line here is still in approval, if I go into the details there, I can actually see the approval workflow. So in this case here, I have 2 different approvers, and I can see from the audit log that the first approver has already taken their action. It's now with the second person. So as soon as I get this approval, it will move over to the purchase order stage. Once again, there's my budget information perhaps. So when you have a disapproved line like this, what it allows someone to do is to modify, resubmit just that one line, which means an approver only needs to deal with that one line. So think of a paper requisition, right? If you have a problem with a paper requisition and there's 6 lines on it, you're sending back the entire requisition. You're not getting out your scissors, cutting out the one line, and just sending that back. You're sending the whole thing back. With here, you can work out a line level. So it's very efficient for any issues that may be encountered. And of course, throughout that process, email notifications. So you get a separate email when something's disapproved. Which one was disapproved? Why was it disapproved? A separate email when a line is fully approved, so on and so forth. And that process will continue. So if I log out again, I now log in as my department head, for example, my second line of approval, load that back up. If I expand my requisition here, you can see I have only 2 lines that I need to respond to. So for my department head, what I've allowed them to do is see the entire story. Now you can turn this off for certain users, but for my department head, I want them to be able to see every line on this requisition, even though they only need to take action on 2 of the lines per the approval matrix. So I do my approvals, hit process, move through, so on and so forth, and eventually, if I go back out, come back in, as my employee here, you'll see that I have now 3 lines that are fully approved, which means I can issue them as purchase orders. So now if I log out and log in as a purchasing agent, for example, which is my next stop, we're going to call this the reviewer. After you have fully approved lines, you enter the review stage. The review stage is the stage where you actually issue the purchase order itself. And as you can see, you also have a to-do section that is showing up here again, but instead of being approvals, it's now what's called review. Who does this review step is completely dependent on you, your organization. The issuing of purchase orders can be centralized, can be decentralized, it can even be systematically done automatically. How that's done can even change on a transaction by transaction level if you want. Now, when someone's actually doing a release of a purchase order themselves, though, they'll come in, they'll have access to this to-do area, they'll go into the review area, they'll then load any outstanding fully approved requisition lines into their queue, can now view this information, view the details. You can order all, you can wait on lines, disapprove lines, override the price, override other information to a degree. You know, the workflow engine is always watching. So if you make a change that is considered a material change of any sort, maybe it's a material change to the amount, to the department, whatever it might be, that either A, it's outside of your threshold, or scrutinizing needs to be scrutinized by a new set of approvers, it will be evaluated here. So you can't get an approval and then make a material change at the time of the purchase order. The system will resubmit for approval. But assuming that you're within those tolerances, whatever they might be, you indicate which lines you want to process. You can consolidate multiple requisitions on a single PO, or in our case here, take a single requisition and actually issue multiple purchase orders all at the same time. Now, when you issue a purchase order, a few things are going on. First of all, purchase order has been issued, most likely over into Dynamics. So you now have a purchase order in Dynamics. It's been created there. It's in real time. It's created directly. It's already there. There's your purchase order number, coming off of your Dynamics purchase order number sequence. In this case here, I can see a copy of the purchase order. The second PO, though, that was created, you can see it's already been sent to the email address that is listed here. So if I come in, back over to my email, sure enough, I, as the vendor now, have already received an email telling me this purchase order is being requested. There's a copy of the PO. Of course, you can modify this, put your terms and conditions on it, your logo, criteria, along those lines. And then I have the details for it down below here. Now, once you have issued those purchase orders, you start to get some additional information back in that requisition side of things. So if I go into the requisition here, for example, and I go to one of these lines that I've issued as a purchase order and go into the details, now I have more information I can view. I can see the purchase order, a copy of the purchase order, the fact that it was emailed, how much has been ordered, canceled, shipped, rejected, returned, invoice matched. I can potentially even see payment information that's in there, plus the entire audit log, all from that requisition screen. So this requisition screen is a key area. You can even pull up a requisitions and perhaps cancel out amount, or in some cases even make a purchase order change order request itself and route that for approval, all from this requisition. Now, that core process we just did, that is at the heart of what you need for spend control. Now, outside of that requisition piece, though, there's a couple elements that are available to help expedite other steps in the procurement process, such as receiving. So in our last couple remaining minutes here, I want to just touch on some of the other aspects. One of those being that receiving. So after you've issued a purchase order, you can enable web-based receiving against that purchase order. Receiving is not an inventory-specific function. It is an acknowledgement that you've received the goods or services that you requested, and this is used for an AP process later on. So if I come into receiving, maybe I only want to receive for a particular vendor, a particular purchase order, for example. Load that into my screen here. To receive, you simply check this off. You either enter or verify the amount being received, do a partial receipt if you want, reject amounts if you want, attach a packing slip if you want. But once you're done, hit process, and you've just received. This can potentially send a receiving transaction back over to Dynamics, or maybe if it's separate and it's a separate procurement, it's creating an accrual entry directly. But it's the easiest step in the process. Now, after you receive, of course, hopefully, or at least you should, you'll get into a AP invoice. So that final match process, this is a key step in the procurement process. So if I come into AP, log in, and I now want to match an invoice, I simply go into the invoice match area. As part of that invoice match area, when I have an invoice, I simply select the vendor, enter in the invoice number, and then I just load the outstanding purchase order lines as part of this. So when I do that, I simply check off which lines I'm going to match, enter in the quantity, enter in the price, load that in, attach a copy of the invoice, and hit submit. One of two things is going to happen. Either A, everything matches, it's going to go right to accounts payable for payment, or B, there's a variance issue, it's going to submit it for approval. Once again, just like you've already seen. So that concludes the procurement process within the workplace portal in the areas that we want to cover here today. So I will hand the session back to the moderator to address any questions.
Oops, I was muted. Sorry about that. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. And as we indicated before, you can enter any questions you may have in the question and answers panel, or in the questions panel, and we'll be sure to ask them. We do have one question so far. How many levels of approvals can be set up?
Approval levels are unlimited, actually. So you could have one approver on a line, but you could have 1,000 if you want it. That's your design of your approval matrix.
Okay. All right. And then let's see. Can an alternate approver requisition if someone is out of the office?
Yes. Great example of due to time constraints, not able to cover every feature within the application, but you will have predefined backups as part of your approval matrix. And as an approver, if you're not available, you can just turn on your alternates. You can schedule them if you're going on vacation. Your system administrator can activate them, and is really plugged into the overall mechanisms to help keep things moving. So that includes there's auto escalation capabilities, there's auto reminder capabilities, and things along those lines to help keep those approvals moving through the system.
Okay. All right, and let's see. We'll just give it a moment here to see if any other questions pop up. And oh, here's one. After matching received PO with an invoice, how does the info get into the Microsoft Dynamics as an AP entry?
Directly and in real time. It depends on the platform that you're talking about. So in the case of, say, Dynamics GP, it's probably going in as a shipment invoice. If you're talking Dynamics SL, it's creating a voucher. We'll go into an open batch typically, but it is directly, as soon as you hit that process button that we saw, it's creating it. So it's behind the scenes, automatic.
All right. And that actually looks like all the questions we have for the moment. And before we close, I wanted to talk a little bit, just a real quick update on MIG support plans. We do offer many support options for different levels of customers depending on your needs. And some of our plans include not just support with Microsoft Dynamics products, but also support with any third-party add-ins, including Workplace and what have you. They're fixed rate plans, so you pay once a year for the plan. And just a more efficient way, and some of them even include training and some other options as well. And then we do have many different training-specific programs as well, where we can get some different things you want to learn, you want to get up to date on. You have new employees that you want them to get learn how to use the system from a beginning level, or if there's something specific you want to do, please definitely reach out to us and we can set up a training plan specific to your needs. And as I mentioned before, there are also some training hours available with some of our support contracts. And you can send that info, or ask for that info at info@mig.com. At the end of this webinar, there is a survey that will appear. The survey is designed to help us evaluate and improve our webinars. If you can please take a few moments to fill that out, that would be excellent. It helps us improve our webinars for you. So thanks again. Thank you to the folks from Paramount for their presentation. And if you have any questions, info@mig.com is the website. You can go to our website at www.mig.com. And then if you have any questions about Paramount or the Workplace application, definitely reach out to us and we'll arrange for a private discussion and possibly even some additional demonstrations. Thank you very much, and everybody have a great day.